Welcome.
I'm glad to be here.
Good. Glad you're here, Miss Lee Newton.
Yes.
Okay. So I first met you kind of just in passing with, actually, he was my former sub bus driver and then turned into great friend,
Oh,
Dale Houston.
yes,
Yeah.
my honey.
Yeah. I was
My
so
favorite.
glad he called me. He said, you told me one day that I would eventually find new love. And I said, you didn't get locked up, did you? And
That's a good one.
he goes, no, I didn't get locked up. He said, man, I found it. And he said, I think we're going to get married. And I said,
Aw.
okay. I said, have you asked her yet? He said, well, and I said, well, then how do you know? He said, I'm going to.
Aw, that is so
And then
sweet.
so I saw it all unfold, and I talked to him, and he told me about everything. And then I run into him about a year ago, I guess, at a restaurant, and he was sitting across from me, and I kept prank phone calling him. It's from the other side of the bar, and he was like, why does he keep calling and hanging up? I was like, and I finally texted, and I said, look up, look straight across, and he went, hey!
Oh my gosh.
So that's
Oh, he is the best, and God did send him to me. That's what
Good.
He did, because we're 6 hours apart. I live in Carolina, North Carolina,
Right.
and him living here, and he's we met with a mutual comment on Facebook.
Oh, wow.
We weren't even friends on Facebook, so yeah, we met, and it was just instant. Like we just hit it right off, and the first conversation we ever had was 12 hours.
when you know it, you know it. Huh?
That's when we knew. I was like, okay. And of course, he tries to have better hair than me, but
I told him, I said, you remind me of Cousin It. I said, when you're walking away from me, I'm going,
he has got some hair. We are the hair couple, that's for sure.
that's it. Yeah.
We're the hair couple, yeah.
Good deal. Good deal.
Yeah.
So what have you got going on in your
Oh my goodness.
corner of the world, North Carolina?
Well, a lot. I've been working on getting ready for the new album. I've been still promoting my last album, which I released, which was called Homesick. That was the fourth studio release that I did.
Okay.
And just got nominated for 8 nominations for that with the ISSA Award, which is in Atlanta.
Okay.
And then they've just started with the JMAs, which is at the Opry. They are having them this year, and I've won like 5 years in a row there. So traditional country
Congratulations.
artist, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
I did that back in, I think, 2016, 2017.
Yeah. And they've really, it's amazing at how much that they've, just every year when
Oh, yeah. I think it was in the symphony when I did
that's
that.
at the beginning.
Yeah, I was nominated that year and didn't even know it. Don't even know how I got nominated. I assume that process is somebody has to nominate you. Is
Yeah.
that
Well,
how it
and
works?
now I think you can self-nominate. Then and you submit your stuff. Don't mean that you're going to get fully
Yeah.
nominated because they'll go through the process and stuff. But yeah, it's 2020 is when I first got nominated and won that year, and it's been just
I got a phone call and they said, you've been nominated for Male Artist of the Year and Vocalist of the Year. And I'm like, for how? And then let's explain it to you.
Oh,
Like, okay. So it was fun.
and they've really, in the last, this will be their 3rd year doing it at the Grand Ole Opry.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 years ago, I got to actually close out the show and perform Carolina, which was a song that I wrote with about my dad and my mom and being from Carolina. And oh my gosh, it was just because it was such a dream come true, because I've always wanted to play the Grand Ole Opry. Who doesn't? I mean, if you're an artist, you want to play it, and you grow up wanting to play. But my dad, when I was a little girl, he always said, my first name's Brenda, so Brenda Lee.
Oh, okay.
I'm
There you
named
go.
after Brenda Lee. He would sit me up on the coffee table and be like, you're going to be on the stage of the Grand Ole Opry one day. So he said stage. So years later, I didn't get to perform on the Grand Ole Opry show, but I did get to sing that song on the stage of the Grand Ole Opry. And of course, he passed away when I was 11. So,
Oh, okay.
so yeah, so
he was there with
He
you,
was
though.
there because-
I guarantee you.
yeah, Dale and I were, we had our seats in the front row. So when I was gone, of course, that front row seat was empty. And Dale had bought me, my dad was a cab driver, and Dale had bought me for my birthday a replica of my daddy's cab driver's hat
Oh,
that had a badge that had Carolina cab driver on it. And
Okay.
so they placed the hat on a mic stand right next to me while I sang the song, which was so hard,
Oh, wow.
because the last line of that song in Carolina, it goes, "Tonight I'm on this Opry stage. I can almost see my daddy's face, proud of his girl from Carolina." And then,
Ah,
so it was a very emotional time.
I can
It really
imagine.
was.
I
And of
can
course, I didn't
imagine.
look at Dale at all because I knew that I would be crying. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But they've really uh, done really well over the last several years, building it up and having amazing talent there.
Oh,
And
yeah. I like picking on Josie. We did the Keith Whitley Memorial last year, and I hadn't seen her in forever. And she was like, "Where have you been?" I said, "Been working. Been
working.
working. Every time y'all have an award show, I've been working." And she goes, "I get it. Paycheck's better than that." And I said, "Yep." And
Yep.
we talked a little bit, and she said, "Well, are you playing the golf tournament tomorrow?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah." She said, "Well, holler at me." She said, "I've actually bought a hole there. Sponsored a hole."
Oh, wow.
And I was like, "Oh, well, good deal." I said, I'll call you when we get your hole." Like
Oh.
that. She just looked at me and rolled her eyes. So I actually carried Randy with me, and ironically enough, because nobody starts at the same hole on those
Yeah.
types.
You started different ones. Yes,
we
yes.
started at Josie's hole,
No,
and
you
so
did not.
I did a video thing, and I was like, "Well, here we are, guys. We're kicking off the Keith Whitley Memorial, and we're started at Josie's hole."
Jesse's hole.
Like that, and I went like, "So thank you, Josie, for allowing us to start at your hole."
Started your hole. That is so hilarious.
called
I
me-
bet she laughed.
She called about a week later, or no, she didn't call. She sent me a message on Messenger, and somebody else called me and go, "Boy, you was stepping off the edge there, wasn't you?" I was like, "Yeah."
I love them though. They have been they're so sweet. And Josie, I just love her so much.
Yeah.
She's good
But
people.
they just kind of started this thing with an idea, the way I understand
yeah,
it.
yeah. I mean,
And it was all about independent artists.
this is the 11th year. And the thing about it is, and this is what I've noticed, it's independent art, independent award show. But every year, I mean, you start seeing all these artists that are big artists.
Mm-hmm.
They're independent. Everybody's going, basically independent.
Well,
you
don't. If you've got a label deal right now, the joke is you're in debt.
You're in debt because you got to pay it back.
Yeah,
I mean,
you've
they
got to
own
pay
you.
it back, and it's like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
But some of these people are very fortunate when they do that, and it takes them several years
Yeah.
to recoup.
Yes.
And if you're young enough and you got that drive and
Yes.
you want to work that hard,
And it's
I'm
a
gonna be
good,
honest
and
with
if
you,
it's a good
I
deal,
don't want to work that hard.
Yeah, I don't want to have to be. I don't want that over my head.
I'm married, but not to the industry.
Exactly.
Yeah, my industry don't
Yeah.
hold me tight at
Yeah,
night.
I don't want somebody over top of me. Like, I want to be able to call the shots and do the music that I love. And,
Yeah.
I write my music. I make sure that, if I want to do something, I don't want somebody being like, "Oh, you can't do that," or "You have to do this." No, that ain't going to work. But yeah, they do so much for independent artists. I mean, because just, being there and then getting to meet other people and then you network and then that, certain things lead to, I mean, it always just a big circle, it just keeps growing, and every year it's just gotten really, really great. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to this year. I think they're doing their nomination throughout the month of May. I think I've already got one nomination for them this year. And then, of course, like I said, it'll go through the month of May.
Well, you need to get in touch and nominate us for podcast. of the year.
Well, it missed it this year apparently because you have to have your
By
submissions
May, huh?
in by the end of April.
I did start at Josie's hole.
Well,
I may be able to call her.
You might be able to say, "Hey Josie, can I get on your?
Yeah.
I won't say get on the hole because you're not going to be on the hole, but so I can't.
Actually,
do
we're
good
doing
as
that
you.
again this year as soon as that happens. So
Really?
we're going to do
Oh,
it again this year.
man.
We had a lot of fun doing that. It was really amazing. Keith Whitley was just a huge, and that's another whole interview that I'm
Yes.
saving. But he was just a huge influence in my life.
Yeah.
And the fact that I literally got to sit in a studio just like this with him in his
Did you
garage.
really?
And it was, one of those things. It was like me and Randy or me and you are just sitting there talking.
Yeah.
It wasn't about who he was fixing to be or who he was already becoming to be. He was just, "Hey, man, let me show you what I'm doing right here." He was just so in love with music. And I knew right then, if I ever was going to get into that world, I told myself right then, I've got to be in love with it, because the only way you're good at something is you're married to
You
it as far as your love and your passion.
exactly. Yeah.
And so now I tell people all the time, they say, well, man, are you still touring as much as you did? I think, nope. Why not? Don't want to. And they, well, how many shows are you doing a year? And I said, I don't know, 15, 20, maybe a year. Oh, well, is that enough? And I was like, it feeds the monster.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
feeds that monster in me that wants to get out there and perform.
Yeah.
And if I could do something a little different, and that's why this podcast thing has been fun, because it's a little different.
Yeah.
And my grandfather, oh, you got the gift of gab, son. You got to find a way to use it. And I heard him one day say that in my brain, and I was like, podcast probably wouldn't be a bad thing.
Yeah.
I might have a few friends. I might
See, that's
call on
pretty
them.
cool.
And so that's kind of filled a little bit of a void since I've been off work a little bit this year. And as long as I can get up and do some things. We did Third and Lindsley the other night, and actually sold it out. It was a deal. It
And
was
a lot
fun.
of it, let me just say, I was listening and looking at a lot of your songs, and we have a lot of the similar taste. Because
Yeah.
I love the traditional country, but I love the Southern rock, and I love the blues, and I love Delbert McClinton, and I love, there was some, I can't remember, I'm trying to remember, but there was several that you did. I'm like, oh my gosh, I do that one. Oh, I do that one too. Oh man, I like his style.
Yeah. I grew up in I always tell people I'm the proudest American there is as far as a generation. I grew up in the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Yeah.
And 90s.
Yeah.
And music
Music.
was always a part of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and 90s.
Yep.
It was the biggest influential thing. It's when Southern rock came in. It's when
Yes.
Southern rock trickled out. It's when pop came in. It's when pop went out. Country was always there, and all of a sudden the 80s came and country started changing, and the 90s came. It was like, oh my God, what have we gotten? Where did real country music
Yeah.
go? And so I went and lived through all of that. I tell people, when I got in my parents' vehicle when I was younger, all they had was AM radio. Then Dad got a new vehicle, and it had an 8-track tape player.
Oh,
And nobody knows what an 8-track is.
oh, I do.
I
had
got
an 8-track
boxes
player.
of them.
Oh, my first 8-track was Boxcar Willie.
My dad used to, when we were young, the market down the street from us, they had these little containers, and they had circles cut in the glass. Everything was behind glass, and you could stick your hand in there and you could pull the tape out and look at it, turn it over and read what songs was on it, and slide it back in the slot if you didn't want it. If you wanted it, you dropped it down the bottom of the thing, and the lady attendant would come with the key, open it up, get it out, and you go pay for it. That's how you bought 8-track tapes.
Oh, my
So my
gosh.
dad stocked those from Nashville to Missouri.
Really?
2 days a week. And him and a guy named who actually just reached out to me the other day, named Shelton Cantrell. And the funny thing was, when we were, my dad now resides in a nursing home, and I was cleaning out some of his stuff, and I found this huge box. I was like, Lord, what is in this one? Open it up. It's unopened, still sealed in cellophane, 8-track tapes. I mean, from
way.
Red Fox to
Wow.
Richard Pryor to Three Dog Night, all of those just cool
Yeah.
old
Yeah.
Hank Williams Jr., all these different things. Well, I kept looking at them and looking at them and looking at them, and I caught Dad on a good day. He has dementia, and I caught him on a good day. I said, Daddy, I found that big box of 8-tracks, and he goes, oh yeah, the ones that Shelton and I used to deliver. And I said, yeah. I said, I didn't see record labels on them nowhere. I said, who was the record labels back then? He goes, well, hell, there wasn't no record labels. All of them was bootlegged. I said, oh. I said,
Oh,
so
my gosh.
y'all didn't pay the artist. And I said, you didn't pay royalties. He goes, don't blame me. I was just a delivery boy. I didn't make the money.
How funny.
But they were all, so I've got
Wow.
these boxes of bootleg 8-track tapes.
Oh my goodness.
And so I mentioned it to a friend of mine who's really big in the record world.
Yes.
He has a shop down in East Nashville, and that's what they do. They sell old vintage stuff, reel to reel, and
Yeah.
8-tracks. And he goes, dude, do you know how much that's worth?
Oh my
He
gosh.
said, you need to bring them over here one day. And I said, man, they were stored and not climate control. I would be afraid to open them up and put them in
Oh
because
man.
if you remember 8 tracks, you put them in and they go
Yep. Oh yeah.
and start spitting stuff out and you ruin the
About
whole
as bad
thing.
as like just the tapes,
Yeah.
because I had like my dad, like I said, he passed when I was 11, so he would always take my mom's tapes that she had recorded her gospel songs on,
Mm-hmm.
and he would take them down to the cab stand and he would record over top of them. So I would have, but I had like 2 tapes of like his songs that he had put on those recordings.
Mm-hmm.
And one got messed up because as soon as it put in, the tape player
Started
tore it
eating
up.
it.
So I have one, and I've been able to use those in my recordings on my album, like a little snippet. But I got it converted finally to a CD, But I mean, I'd be afraid to put that tape in. Like,
Yeah.
it's just they don't hold up good, especially if they're not
Yeah.
stored right.
So I told him, I said, "Hey, I'll sell them to you for what you want. If you want to give something that's worth it, I said,
Wow.
right now they're just a box of memories for me. And I said, but I ain't gonna guarantee it when you put them in, it won't chew them up. He said, I'd never put them in.
Wow.
He said, I just want to hold on to them and look at them.
It's
So
really
I
awesome.
kind of went in one ear and out the other. They're still sitting right where they were.
They're your box of memories.
Yeah. Well, trust me, if you ever see my garage, it looks like this place. It's a whole big box of memories that needs to be
Wow.
whittled down. I can store so much in here.
Well, you sound like Dale on that. He is. Yeah, I have to get rid of stuff when he's on the road.
Yeah.
Dale will keep I told him, I laugh at him all the time. I'm like, he will keep, if it's a straw from 4th grade and he thinks he's going to use it, for something in the future, you don't throw it away.
Yeah.
He will reuse something.
See, my wife used to think that about me. And then since we sold our home in Franklin and we moved to Mount Pleasant where we're at now, and we've built like 4 houses since then. And we have another house that we've been working on, and we buy them and flip them and stuff like that. And she started noticing. She said, "Your garage is whittling down. What have you been doing all that stuff?" I said, "I've been using it on these houses." And she goes, "Oh, so that's why you were holding on to all of that." I was like,
wow.
"Yep." And we were down there the other day, and she said, "I want some those real old vintage nails." And I said, "Oh, you're talking about the ones with the big fat heads on them?" And I said, and the bottoms of them are all square.
Yes.
And she goes, "Yeah." I said, "I have a 25-pound box of those." Where? And I said, "That's the one you trip over all the time when you're putting the cat food in the bowl." She goes, I said, "Well, I put a bunch of them in a bucket." So she goes down there and she's used them on this cabin that we're redoing, log cabin.
That's cool.
So
see, they came in handy.
So now she knows why. But her thing is she says, "I don't mind you keeping this stuff, but let's just disorganize it a little
That's
bit
where
better."
I had Dale before we went on the road. We were out there. Because I'm very big on organize. At least if we're going to keep it, we're going to have it to put where we are. So we were out there organizing the garage and all that, and him putting his tools where, and I'm like, yeah. So I had him working doing the honey-do list before he left.
Yeah, well, my whole life is a honey-do list.
Well, he's on the road so much that by the time I do a lot on my own, and then when he gets there, I already have my little list. I have to hurry up and get him to get accomplished with me before he leaves again.
So, have you got any dates coming up soon you want to share with some people?
Well, and this will be the first place people will be able to hear this because literally the contracts are getting signed, and it'll be letting on tomorrow. But a couple years ago, I did a pre-race concert for the Lucas Oil Show Me 100 in Missouri.
Okay.
And so they, of course, it's been 2 years, and they call me back and they want me to do another one, which I'm super excited about because there's a lot of people, amazing people. And so, yeah, that'll be on May 24th coming up. And then, of course, I do a lot with the veterans, and I'm honorary member with the Marine Corps back home, so I do a lot with Toys for Tots and the veterans. So I'm doing a show there at the big amphitheater at the Pops in Forest City, and there's a lot coming up. The different, just of course, just doing different shows and interviews, and
good deal.
But I'm really excited about getting to go back to Lucas Oil.
You just said some things that just tickled me to death, though, is because I told you about going down there and working for a couple of months.
Yeah.
And I stayed right there at Lake Lure. So I was all over top of y'all. And when I would leave, I would go down and take Chimney Rock, or not Chimney Rock. Was it Chimney Rock that was?
Yeah, it was Chimney Rock. Yeah, Lake Lure, Chimney Rock.
Yeah, I would take that road and all the way back to Forest City.
To Forest City, yes.
And down there where it was so weird, the one part of the the river that washed out up close to the road, there was just this house sitting on a piece of land, and the river was going around at one side, and the river was going around at this side, and they were sitting there scratching their heads the first day I drove by. And I said, "Yeah, it's going to be a pickle to figure that one out because the river was roaring, and it was going both sides." And I'm like, that house is just sitting out there. You could see the water line
Where it had
going. You could see the electrical lines that they had, and they were going. They were just sitting there in the water, going floating up and down, but no way to get to it.
Wow.
And so yeah, I stayed at that Lake Lure. That was really nice because I got to wake up every morning and walk out on the condo decks, and you could see that big gigantic rock.
The
that
big
face.
rock, yes.
It was so freaking cool.
Well, see, and I know you know it because you were there, but you know the entrance to go into like when you're going into Chimney Rock and you come up to the entrance to drive, and it was big rock thing, and you drove across the bridge to get to the other side to go up to Chimney Rock, because you pull at the bottom and you could either take the little bus up there or you could hike it. I've hiked it a lot, but the bridge it's completely halfway gone. So
yeah, I didn't go down that far. They were telling me about that.
Oh,
I went to
bad.
this little. I went like almost weekly, sometimes twice a week, because it was such a cool little general store. And I'm drawing a blank on the name, but you went back out to where I was at Lake Lure. I had to go all the way back out and around, and you drop down off the mountain, I called it, come down to a stop, and I hung a right, and I'd go about, I don't know, 2 or 3 miles, and then you could start to see the lake on the right side. Well, then you'd hang a left because all of that was blocked off right there. You couldn't go any further. And you would come all the way around. You come back on a different highway, and there was this little general store, and it had everything from groceries to chainsaw blades to chainsaw chains, blades, candy,
oh my gosh,
pecans. It was just the neatest, and of course gas and diesel,
Yeah,
bread,
just a little
frozen
bit of
food
everything.
section, and it was such a cool little general store.
Man.
I was like, man, that is just one-stop shopping right there in the country.
Well, and there's not. I mean, and over at Lake Lure, a lot of the
Guinnesses.
I've been there.
Guinnesses.
Yep.
That's what it was called, Guinnesses.
And I'm glad. I mean, there was several that just got completely washed away. I mean,
Yeah.
some of those things, and then a lot of them, they're trying to get them back open, but it's going to take a long time.
Oh yeah, from what I've seen, yeah.
Yeah, no, they were working that day.
They
when
had
we
me
were
on a
over there.
crew to where we were just riding on this machine, and we'd pull up to a pile of brush, that was the cut crew had already piled up, and we'd pick it up and load it into a truck, and I'd just go on down and pick up and load it into a truck.
And then you
so
had
I got
your
to see a lot
trailer
of,
too, right? You had your trailer.
No,
No, you didn't have a trailer?
I didn't. We were on a truck that had a trailer, and it had a machine on the front of it. I would sit up on the front of that and run that machine, pick up stuff and sit in it. And just all day long, 8 hours a day. And boy, you could talking about some thinking.
Oh, I bet.
You could do some thinking, but your hands was moving and your feet was moving, so you couldn't write anything down. So by the time it would come in one side of his brain, it bounced a couple of times and
That's like kind of like we I've always got my phone, and if I get like any ideas, anything come to me, I'll always sing a little bit in there at least, or wake up in the middle of the night, and Dale, he'll be like, well, I had a really good idea for a song, and I'm like, well, did you write it down? No, I was going to, but then now I forgot, and I'm like, have you not learned anything? Write it down.
Yeah, you have to write it down. Yeah,
you do, because you think you're going to remember it, but you don't. No.
Well, I am so excited to have you here today. This part of our show, I don't know if I told you this or not, but I'm going to tell you now.
Oh, gosh.
So, it's called, Man, I Hope It's True. It's the name of this podcast.
Okay.
So what we ask our guests to do is tell us a story that you've heard. And you don't know if it's true or not, but you've heard it, and it's an amazing story.
Okay. Can it be some that you don't know if it's true, and then some that you know that it goes into the same story?
Whatever.
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay. Well, we have the Super Chief.
Yeah.
Merle Haggard's old bus. And so I'll tell you what I don't know, and I'll tell you what I do know. So there was a certain artist, very well known, very recent, where we had leased the bus out to them to use. So they had Merle's bus out, and Merle's bunk was right in the middle. They had, he had the big queen size bunk right in the middle of the bus, and then there's 4. So this particular artist was staying in Merle's bunk, and there's a few other crew members on there, and so the first one is this guy got up, one of the crew members, and looked back into the back kitchenette, and he came back up to the bus driver, and he's like, I just saw Merle at the back kitchenette, and I could hear her sing me back home. And the guy said his face was just as white as snow. Okay. Of course, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever.
I didn't think you allowed drugs on the bus.
Well, listen, this goes to the second one right here. So the next morning, somebody gets up. I think it was the artist himself that got up, and he was like, okay, I'm smelling marijuana. Who has been doing anything on this bus? And everybody's like, well, I ain't done nothing. The smell of it was all over the bus,
Sniff the curtains.
Well, and the windows have been taped. You can see where the windows had been taped on that bus because somebody did not want that smell to get out because they didn't want to know that somebody had smoked it. So that was like kind of a wild thing that kind of connected it to Merle. And then the next one, they got up and they were like, they called Dale and they're like, what temperature did Merle have it on the bus when, we rode it? And Dale was like, well, he usually would run it like in 68, 69. He said, but towards the end, in his older years, he would run it like 72, 73, right there. They had went to bed with it on 66, I think, and they woke up and it had been changed to 73, like the same as what Merle was. Now, those three things, this happened within a week. And there's been things of noises on the bus. But this is what happened to me. So, I recorded Working Girl Blues. I did the version of Leona. I had Leona there with me on it. Pam Tillis was on it with me.
Oh, wow.
Leroy Parnell played. It was amazing. So Dale and I were here in Nashville, and we're on this bus, and we're in the back kitchenette. And there was no lights, no nothing on. And now there's always been this thing where Merle's bunk is, there's a stream of lights. And all of a sudden, these lights they'll flicker throughout the whole thing. He's trying to find short, we can't explain it. All of a sudden, it'll do it different times. Well, at this time, there was nothing, no lights on, nothing was on in the bus. And we're sitting back there, and Dale calls me back there, and we sit down. He said, just sit here for a minute. And so we sit there, and I start playing Working Girl Blues. And it's on film, too. It's on my YouTube, so you can go on there and look. Because you could see the look on my face. I'm like, oh, my gosh. So I'm playing Working Girl Blues, and all of a sudden, in behind me, the lights do this. And then I'm like, oh, my gosh. And then I'm like, Merle, do you like that? And then all of a sudden, it's like that. I mean, the lights were just going crazy. So... yeah, I think most definitely maybe Merle's something's on that bus.
There you go.
So, man, I hope that's true.
Knowing Dale like I do, he'll have it posted up somewhere down on Broadway or Demonbream, and free tickets, come on the bus.
Come on the bus. Well, I'll tell you.
Wait a minute, no, free's not in his vocabulary.
No, $5 a pop. No.
Yeah, $5 walk through.
But we did. It was while we did get it worked on, not far from the house in Chesney, and Waylon's bus was there. Waylon's old bus. So we had the Super Chief and Waylon's bus there, and the guy that was working on Waylon's bus, and he has his place there, he was telling. Now we hadn't said nothing about all this other stuff going on, and he even said there was so much noise going on inside of there. He said I kept hearing stuff all day, all night when I was out there working on the other bus. So, just, I don't know, but that's what I have experienced.
It's good.
Yeah.
That's different.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure
different.
it is.
Yeah, I'd probably be the first guy to jump out the window.
If something ever happened, I'd be like, oh my gosh. Because, because Merle's hat, when Dale got the bus, Merle's hat, when he got on there, there's a back compartment that's kind of hidden. Mm-hmm. And Merle's hat was up there. So there's a lot of cool stuff.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for
so
having
glad
me
you
here.
were able to make it here.
Yeah.
And when's the next time you're going to be in Nashville, and drag old Dale back, and we'll see if we can't
Well,
get some more stories
I'll
out of
be
him
here
as well.
I'll be coming back this Thursday to perform.
Okay.
And then on the 20th, I'll be coming to the Opry Classics. So I'll be there
All right.
back. You'll see me backstage mingling with everybody. But Dale won't be back until the end of June. So
End of June.
end of June. And then he's going to take me on a special little cruise. So we're going to have some time together. We'll go to Key West and Cozumel.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
that's
so-
exciting.
Yeah.
You have straightened him out, because, I mean, I was thinking cheetah bass boat, and I...
No, no. But yeah, we got to get Dale back down here. So, yeah, it'd be
Good
awesome.
deal. Well, guys, we hope it's true.
We hope it's true.